happen in November and December. Sales tax somewhat inexplicably down. Oil obviously going into the 20s and sticking right now in about the early 30s with a projection significantly higher than that, and a negative number in corporate income tax. In the November Revenue Estimating Conference meeting, corporate income tax was down $328 million. Year to date, corporate income tax is a negative $200 million. Corporations are rushing to file and claim credits, and those credits are exceeding the amount that they're actually paying into the state. So we're sitting on a negative $200 million corporate income tax right now.
Commissioner, could you give us some enlightenment on, in terms of that corporate tax being down, have y'all had an opportunity to figure how much of that may be oil and gas sector related, or how much is a general malaise in the
I think it's overall. I can't tell you exactly what percentage is oil and gas. I'm sure it's an amount, obviously, with corporations, but they also have ways of being able to have income in other entities so as to minimize the burden. But overall, corporate tax liability is going to be a negative and probably is not going to bust into the positive column. We hope it does in the remaining months of the fiscal year, but right now, if the trend continues what we've seen in November and December numbers, which have come in, we're at $750 million estimated. Only can go up, I'm afraid. So that's going to require the governor and the legislature to act in a special session, because we can't deal with revenue matters this year, to act in a special session to close the gap by the time the fiscal year ends on June 30th. The fiscal session will begin on February 14th, on Valentine's Day. And it will end immediately before the regular session. By the time any revenue measure, if they can pass, is implemented, we're really looking at revenue from April, May, and June, 3 months of the fiscal year, best case scenario, 4 months of the fiscal year. So the cuts that we're going to be making and the revenues that need to be raised have to happen within a 4-month period. That makes the cuts, as you all know, doubly devastating, because you can't spread them out over 12 months, you spread them out over what's left in the fiscal year. The proposal that has been made and that the governor is advocating would be to use $128 million of the rainy day fund, which is still eligible to be used in the current fiscal year, to redirect $200 million in revenue that will be paid by BP for the non-coastal damages suffered by the state. All the BP money that comes in dedicated to the coast is going to go to the coast, but the non-coastal dollars, which are to repay the state of Louisiana for its economic losses, are going to come over a 15 or 16-year period. The first payment is $200 million. In subsequent years, it's $100 million and down a and they're of equal concern when you look at what the Department of Health and Hospitals is going to have to look at in terms of money that actually can be cut. They have proposed scenarios that result in dramatic reductions in payments to the hospitals who have taken over the charity hospital system. We have contracts in place, obviously, that are going to be called into question. They also have scenarios where all optional services are discontinued, which would mean no hospice, no dialysis, no funds for the developmentally disabled waiver that provides assistance to those in need. These are very, very real dollars and very real cuts that are going to have to be made in a relatively short period of time. And then you get to next year, and we're working the FY17 budget as we speak, and it's going to be a flat budget. It's going to have more cuts in it. We are not going to fund inflation, obviously. We're not going to fund merit pay raises for state employees. We're going to make additional reductions, but we have a $1.9 billion problem projected for FY17, which is why the special session is also going to include a series of proposals that will seek to structurally change the way we raise revenue in this state and the way we consequently budget. So the legislature in a relatively short period of time is going to be asked to address the $750 million problem, and at the same time to make some structural changes that hit everybody and touch everybody. Nobody likes to be doing this, and nobody likes to be talking about what we have to face in this state, but this is the hand that we've been dealt. Now, this is not Governor Edwards' budget for the current fiscal year, obviously, and the problems that have been created for the next fiscal year were not done in the first couple of weeks of this administration. But we understood that. The governor understood that. I certainly understood it. Scott understood it as we sat there as candidates, and we understand it now in the position that we're in. And we're going to have to face reality because there's not going to be any more make-believe in the state budget. People are going to know how much money we have, what the spending is going to be made for. We're going to do everything we can to avoid these continual mid-year cuts that are crippling to institutions like those that you govern. And people are going to have to get used to hearing the truth and hearing the reality of where we are on the budget and recognize that if we don't have any new revenue, we're going to spend exactly what we have right now. We're going to prioritize it as best we can, and higher education remains a top priority for this administration, as all of you know and all of you have heard, and I stand before you today and reaffirm that, but I can't stand before you today and tell you we're going to pick you up out of the mess you're in right now without some other things happening. So I want to have an opportunity to share that information with you. I've talked to the other management boards. Kimberly Robinson has talked to the Southern University Board. I've talked to, I believe, all the others with a similar message. And I ask you, as in your positions as business leaders and responsible citizens in Louisiana, to take a very careful look at what we're saying. Challenge our numbers if you think they're wrong. Tell us where you think we can do better in terms of making cuts or raising revenue, because we're open to suggestions. And our mission is to try and make sure that everybody understands the scope of the problem and that we are not looking to one particular business, one particular class of businesses, or certain individuals to solve this problem. It's going to take all of us together, regardless of party affiliation, regardless of geography, regardless of race, regardless of who you pull for on Saturday nights. We've all got to solve this problem together. And we're up for the challenge, but it's going to be a tough one, and we're going to need your help. And I ask you for your help, and I ask you to contact me if you have questions or if you have ideas or suggestions about what we're doing or how we're going about doing it, because we don't proclaim or profess to know all the answers, but we're going to put forth a responsible plan for the legislature to consider.
Jay, Steve Perry's sitting right over there. When he was with Governor Foster, obviously it's the Stelly plan I'm referring to. Have you considered possibility of re-examining?
Oh yeah, well it's been re-examined, but it won't be repeated. What the governor's already announced as one of the long-term remedies takes certain features of the Stelly plan and reworks them. Compression of the brackets is a part of the plan. Lowering the actual tax rates for both individuals and corporations is part of the plan. And the big question that we suggest needs to be submitted to the voters is whether or not they want to remove the ability to deduct federal income tax on their state tax return. There are only 3 states in America that allow that. We're one of them. Alabama in the South is another one of them, but that's the only one in the southern region. And that's a big dollar item, and that's a different feature than was in Stelly. And also the proposal would call for individuals to be able to deduct one half of their excess itemized deductions. That would cover home mortgages and charitable contributions for most of the people of this state. And that was the big, I think, one of the big sticking points that gave people a lot of concern in the Stelly plan. And that component of it, taking half the excess itemized, is a different wrinkle than what Stelly provided, because Stelly took away all ability to deduct.
Well, Commissioner, it's important for all of us to be cognizant of the fact that those remedies will not affect the current fiscal year.
That's right.
So we've still got that particular issue. How do, and I know historically y'all have looked, it might have been your first term, but the period with the recovery district during the Roma period with the tax, how have y'all viewed that in the analysis of things that you've done?
I wasn't there then. I came the next year when you came, but we are aware of that. We're not proposing going back to a recovery district model. And I didn't mention, but the big component of the temporary fix is a clean penny of sales tax, which would not be subject to any exemptions except those that are provided in the Constitution, which is food, prescription drugs, and residential utilities. That is not the way we'd like to do it in a perfect world, but when you have 3 months left to collect revenue to meet that shortfall, really the only way to do it quickly is a sales tax, which you're able to collect fairly quickly. We view that as a bridge. We're not calling it a temporary tax. We're not calling it a permanent tax, but we're viewing it as a bridge to get us to the long-term fix, which is going to take a constitutional amendment vote in the fall and votes in the legislature on some other things as well.
And the theory on the sales tax is the revenue is immediate, and it's more broad-based across whether it's individuals, corporations.
Well, that's right. But it's also regressive, and we recognize that, and it also chips away at what locals can do with their tax base, because that is obviously a big part of local government's dependency is on sales tax, and that's why it's not a long-term solution. But it's the only short-term solution that accommodates quick dollars to avoid the devastating kind of cuts that you've been asked to suggest.
So how are you going to get let's say we're successful in this and getting this forward. How do we get around some of the constitutional prohibitions and in certain jurisdictions that have home rule charters or have already butted up on a 10% sales tax cap of state and local? How do we get around that in the absence of a statewide district?
Well, we don't. The reality of that exists, but the penny of sales tax is still able to be imposed by the state, regardless of, there's no constitutional prohibition on that happening.
None for y'all.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Now, if we're going to limit local governments to do anything else, if they were inclined to do anything else, I would think, as long as that penny is in place, because you know, we're already going to be the highest sales tax state in the nation, which is not where we want to be. But as a bridge, it's where we think we have to be.
Commissioner, if I could, we've been living in the now for too long, and this now is for a university, as you know, that's already started its semester. We're a month into it. Taking a 32% reduction out of the middle of the semester with everybody hired teaching classes, students already paid their fees, having them come back and pay $700 more mid-semester are just really unprecedented actions that we might have to move into, and we're certainly telling as many people as possible. But we are worried, I'm more so worried about the next 4 months and that special session because of the now and this semester. Because we can only respond in a couple of ways because we're already more than midway through what we planned and what we're doing. So this next 4 months, this special session is absolutely critical, and we'll help any way we can and do anything we can.
I don't blame you for being worried, and I am too, because this is the harsh reality of where we are, and that's why you have to go through the exercise of saying what if, because the public and particularly the legislators need to understand the what if, because it's very real. The money is not there, and again, I welcome anybody to tell us where we can find it. I can assure you can't find it as one now candidate for office has suggested, just cut $400 million in statutory dedications. I mean, that is, he knows better than that. It's not an accurate assessment of what can happen, because obviously a lot of that money has already been spent, and a lot of that money is dedicated to higher education and to health care and to other important aspects of government. So there's not an easy solution to find $750 million in 3 months left in the fiscal year. So the focus now shifts. The governor has laid out a plan, and he has said, I welcome anybody's ideas of a better way to do this. Come tell us. And so I encourage you to challenge legislators to what do they want to do? What's their better idea? Because we're open to it, and the scene is now going to shift. The governor has made the difficult choice to suggest that we do what we have to do, and now the legislators are going to have to decide what they want to do to the state or for the state.
Commissioner, we're all involved in a lot of legislative meetings right now, you know, as you can imagine, in anticipation, especially now as we see some of the leadership evolving. And in our industry in particular, which you know better than anybody, is one of the 2 or 3 largest in the state and employs, you know, over 120,000 statewide, something like that. I can't remember the statewide number. I mean, 85,000 for us. Our message has been really clear to legislators, and it's really been consistent to Democrats and to Republicans and to independents, that we have come to the end of time where we can be about our parties. That really has got to be put to the wayside. And, you know, we've all joked over the years politically about one day we'll have to pay the piper for all the things we're doing and all the one-time fixes and the plugging holes of this and that. And that day's here now, and I think it's starting to really dawn on everyone that that's what we face. So, you know, I would just like to say that I hope all of the various business sectors around the state, while being prudent of the impacts that, you know, any individual proposal will have on them, that we all need to be prepared to come to the table. And we all need to put aside our party affiliations and try to unite together for Louisiana, because as we sit here and look at budgets, and we talk to King about his budget, and we see, you know, of course, for LSU, again, you know this all too well, we catch it on the hospital side and the higher education side. When we look at that quarter of the budget not dedicated, I mean, we get the double whammy. And so, you know, what I'm hopeful of, especially with a dispassionate, rational commissioner like you, is trying to look at this from how do we make Louisiana better, and how do we do something that's rational for business and rational for individual citizens, but at the same time takes care of staggering problems. I would just like to say that I hope that all of us can, no matter what our previous inclinations are politically, that we all come together and help find the solution. And I'll add one final piece to that. I am hopeful, because we hear this, that there are some in the legislature that would like to just cobble together something for right now, instead of doing something structural and real. I just truly believe that right now we need to do something that's hard and structural and real, whatever that proper outcome is, and whatever all the politics that are considered, and all of the parties and philosophies, because we can't afford to push this off another year, because as you do that, the options become even fewer. That's why you have so few now. There's virtually nothing left for you to work with. So that, I just wanted to make that point philosophically and practically and politically. This is only going to work, frankly, if the private sector and the business community and the individuals and all of the interest groups and citizenry come together to help craft something that's going to work.
Well, if we cobble this year, we'll be cobbling next year. Next year's budget is $1.9 billion proposed deficit right now. Again, waiting on the revenue estimating conference meeting in February. And so that's why this special session has to tie together a short-term fix as well as a long-term structural change. And I don't want to see Baton Rouge look like Washington. And that's what we've talked about for a long time, is not letting that seep into what happens at the Capitol. And we've got to make sure that doesn't happen during this session, because whether you're Republican, Democrat, or no party, your Louisiana is going to be dramatically affected by what the legislature does over the course of the next 6 weeks.
Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chairman, we'd be out of line if he held us harmless. We could build a statue for him. We could go with some of the other. We could put the most beautiful statue you've ever seen right there.
I can tell you what, you can put me on the list of donors to the Pete statute. If you're raising money in the private sector, count me in.
All right.
I do think that's long overdue, but thanks for giving me the time to share what is not very happy news. But despite all this, I will say to you that this is an opportunity, and this is a great opportunity for the state to get it right, and we got to make some tough decisions, and I hope we'll be able to do that. And I ask you for your help and encourage you to call if you have questions or suggestions.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us, and I can honestly say the only comfort I have in this crisis is that you are going to be leading us, and you have also solicited the assistance of former Senator Robert Adley. So I know we're in good hands, so wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Don't take too much comfort in that, though. It'll take a lot of other people pulling the wagon as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we will go back into the Healthcare and Medical Education Committee. Mr. Chairman Yarbrough, will
Yes.
you take us to the next item?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kay, would you recall the roll, please?
Mr. Yarbrough.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
Mr. Anderson.
Here.
Update from our counsel on this matter, which is described on the board agenda. I will now entertain a motion from a member of the Healthcare Committee to adjourn into executive session. Have a motion by Kay, a second by Claire. Anyone not in favor? Okay, we will now go into executive session in the President's conference room, and that the board and committee will reconvene immediately following the executive session. I'd like to offer the invitation to any and all board members to also be in this meeting. Thank you.
Man, we still got some more committee reports.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, may I resume?
Yes, you may.
Thank you.
Please.
I would like to note for the record that we have left executive session and have returned to open session at 3:17 PM. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the Healthcare Committee agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Yarbrough. Next on the agenda is Academic Student Affairs Achievement Distinction Committee, chaired by James Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kate, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Lawton? Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Chatelain?
Here.
Mr. Plessis? Mr. Perry?
Here.
Ms. Sanchez? Here.
We have a quorum, Kate?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we have two items to come before the Academic and Student Affairs Committee today. First is request from LSU Health Sciences Center, New Orleans, to approve designation of an alcohol and drug abuse center of excellence as a Board of Regents Center of Research. I'd like to call on Mr. Gill. I'd like to call on you, Mr. Gill Reeve.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Gill.
My notes indicate that I'm supposed to say good morning. But I'll pass on that.
Thank you for your.
The Alcohol and Drug Abuse Center of Excellence at the Health Science Center in New Orleans was first authorized by the Board of Supervisors and the Board of Regents in 1991. In June 2013, the Board of Regents developed a statewide designation for centers of excellence in academic research or workforce programs. Centers of research excellence demonstrate strength in development of knowledge, enhanced faculty research productivity, integration of education and research, and positive economic development in the state. The Health Science Center in New Orleans is requesting approval of the designation for the Center of Research Excellence according to these board guidelines. Research and education programs at the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Center of Excellence have had and continue to have a positive economic impact on the state of Louisiana by reducing significant costs from lost wages, health care, mortality associated with drug and alcohol abuse. The center hosts community outreach events as well as a range of research training programs for high school, undergraduate, medical students, along with professional, including high school teachers, pre- and postdoc fellows, and faculty. The center includes nearly 40 faculty members with active independent research programs. Over the past 10 years, the center's investigators have received nearly $18 million in competitive awards from the NIH on issues dealing with alcohol and drug abuse. The center anticipates revenues of roughly $2.4 million per year over the next 5 years, primarily from federally funded grants. We therefore are requesting that the committee recommend approval of the designation of the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Center of Excellence as a Board of Regents Center of Research Excellence, pending Board of Regents approval.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Reeve.
Chairman, this is a critical issue in our city and in the state, and I move adoption of the designation.
Thank you. Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion from the committee? If not, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Second, we've got a request from LSU Eunice to approve a new program for Associate of Science in Agriculture. Reed?
Thank you. LSU Eunice has developed a proposal to offer the Associate of Science in Agriculture. The objective is to provide students with an associate degree consisting of strong math, biology, physical science, and agriculture base of knowledge as a pathway to a baccalaureate degree in agriculture at four-year institutions. The program will serve the large agrarian population of South Louisiana by helping to increase the number of college graduates at all levels through potential transfer arrangements with LSU A&M and possibly other state and regional universities. This program will offer a degree pathway for students that are currently not able to follow the Associate of Science Louisiana transfer degree due to curriculum inconsistencies between the associate degree and their desired bachelor's degrees in agriculture. LSU units offer sufficient coursework for students to complete this proposed degree. No new faculty or other resources will be needed to initiate the degree program. Course delivery of current and proposed courses will include both on-site and online courses. In addition, several courses may be offered through cross-enrollment with the LSU A&M College of Agriculture at some future date. We are therefore requesting the committee recommend approval of the proposal for LSU, from the LSU units for an Associate of Science degree in agriculture pending Board of Regents approval.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Open for discussion. Any discussion among board members? Any questions?
I would make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Next on the agenda is Property and Facilities Committee. Mr. McAllister, you want to tell us what we're doing?
We had two presentation only scheduled for today, but due to time, we're going to defer those.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right, next is Research and Economic Development Committee. Vice Chairman Mallett, will you?
Mr. Chairman, we'd like to defer this till next month's meeting also.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we're putting off all of these presentations until next meeting. Athletic Committee has already met. Also, the Audit Committee met this morning. And Mr. Jacobs, do you have anything to report on the Audit Committee?
No action taken.
Okay, thank you.
Can I, one question, Blake, could you appoint like a conference committee that everyone had thoughts about, solid vote, thoughts about needing 100% of the committee, thoughts about lack of a RUP award? But maybe you could appoint a conference committee. I already talked to Tom. He said he'd work with us. Kind of, I know Scott had some thoughts as well. Maybe we could stay like 5 minutes after, 10 minutes, and put something together collectively. Maybe you could invite the whole committee to, I think we need to reduce it a little bit more refined down, if you kind of get the drift of my thoughts.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on. We and maybe y'all can do that offline, but let's move on. We've got a lot of business still yet to cover. Let's move on to the actual meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Kay, will you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Lassagne?
Here.
Mr. Ballard? Here. Mr. Plessis? Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Angel? Mr. Chatelain?
Here.
Mr. Danos?
Here.
Mr. Jacobs?
Here.
Mr. Lawton? Mr. Mallett?
Here.
Mr. McAllister?
Here.
Mr. McCrary?
Here.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Mr. Yarborough?
Here.
Ms. Sanchez?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Kay. Next on the agenda is Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Will Cefalo will introduce the folks that will lead us in that.
Excellent. I have two faculty members here today from Pennington and individuals that we think are going to be the future of Pennington. I'll first introduce Dr. Robert Newton, who will give the invocation. Dr. Newton actually obtained his bachelor's degree from Hampton University in 1993 and clinical psychology from the University of Florida in 2002. So I need to state that he is a recovering Florida Gator, but that's okay. He is currently an assistant professor at Pennington, and his research interests really go into the role of insulin resistance and physical activity, particularly in health disparities in the African American. Dr. Newton has published more than 50 manuscripts and has received federal, state, foundation, and industry support his research. So he will be speaking on his particular research and giving the invocation. For the pledge, Dr. Jason Collier is actually an LSU graduate, received his BS in biochemistry and chemistry here from LSU in Baton Rouge, followed by a PhD in biochemistry and molecular biology from the Health Science Center in New Orleans. He has done academic work at Duke University dealing with the pancreatic beta cell and diabetes, has matriculated at the University of Tennessee, and we were fortunate enough in 2013 to recruit him back to Pennington, where he's currently investigating really mechanisms of type 1 diabetes and pancreatic failure. So I'll introduce, if Bob can come forward, give the invocation, followed by the pledge by Dr. Collier.
Guess we can all stand. May we bow our heads in prayer. God, we come to you giving you praise and honor because you're worthy of all praise. We want to thank you for this day. We want to thank you for allowing us to come together, and thank you for all the gifts that we have received. God, we want to ask that your hand of blessing be over this meeting, and that you guide this meeting and direct this meeting so that it's conducted with wisdom and respect for others and productivity. Lord, we want to thank you in advance for allowing us to achieve our goals, and we hope that our actions and our thoughts and our behaviors are pleasing in your sight. May your blessings rest, rule, and abide with us. Amen.
I'll lead us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I want to thank the board for allowing me to say a few remarks today. I think we can all agree that LSU is a really special place, and certainly that's true for me. Dr. Cefalu went through my bio, so I won't rehash that. But what I will do is give you a little vignette, if you will, on why I chose to come back to the Pennington. And so I think the easiest and quickest story I can tell you is when I was a research scientist at Duke University, there was a professor that needed a specific transgenic mouse model for her work. And the Duke Medical School is obviously a top 20 place in terms of federal funding and other metrics, but it did not have the capability to make this particular research resource. They originally tried to contract with the University of North Carolina to get this particular research reagent constructed. After 2 years and quite a bit of money, this didn't happen. So you can imagine the frustration of this research team at Duke. They were put in contact with Randy Minot, who's director of transgenics at the Pennington. Randy was able to generate this mouse in about a year. And with that resource, Pennington and Duke published a very prestigious collaborative paper on that particular topic, which involved insulin resistance, which is an important contributor to type 2 diabetes. Now, having been a native of Louisiana, I was certainly aware of the Pennington and its affiliation with LSU. But I think at that time, I really came to appreciate its reputation as a research institution. And so when I was at the University of Tennessee and starting really my research programs, and I was offered the opportunity to come back as a faculty member at the Pennington by another Louisiana native and LSU alum, Dr. Cefalu, it was an opportunity that I really appreciated and certainly jumped at the chance to do so. And so I've been able to, in a very short time, have many more collaborative opportunities than were available to me at other places. And I think we're able to really be starting on the fringe of some exciting work at Pennington due to the strength of our basic science clinical divisions and population, and also the strength of that collaborative nature between those groups. And so I'll just conclude by thanking you for the opportunity to speak here today and say that it's really nice to be back among family and friends and certainly wonderful colleagues. Thank you.
Well,
Well, as you can imagine, being a Florida Gator, it was very difficult to make the decision to come to LSU. But I came to the Pennington Center directly after getting done with graduate school because of the facilities and the minds that were at Pennington. There really was no match for what I wanted to do. There was no other institution in the United States that could do the things that Pennington could. And another reason why I came to Pennington was because here in Baton Rouge, I could reach the population that I wanted to. As Dr. Cefalu told you, a lot of my work revolves around work with African Americans to try to improve the health of African Americans because of the level of health disparities that they experience in terms of heart disease and diabetes and certain cancers and other chronic disease health disparities. And so with the facilities and the minds that have been here and the collaborations, we've been able to do some important things. We've been able to secure about $1.8 million from the NIH to do an exercise training study for African American men. And that study, we're thinking, is going to show that we actually are able to influence insulin resistance in this population. And of course, if we can improve the health of African Americans throughout Baton Rouge, throughout the state, then of course that would have some effects. May not cut into the budget, the $1.8 billion that we have, but it would do something certainly. We've also been able to secure money again from state and from foundation funding to go into churches and to do weight loss interventions through churches. And this is important because if we can do interventions in the community, like through churches, then these interventions are sustainable. It's not like going to LSU to do a one-time intervention, but we're training people within the churches to deliver these interventions so that they're sustainable. We also made collaborations with YMCA also, so we're very involved in the community. And then a final project that we got funded was a $1.6 million CDC grant where we are actually going to develop a mobile application that is going to help LSU students to improve their diet and increase their physical activity. So that study is going on right now. We are going to be able to intervene with 300 LSU students, and hopefully this application is something that can be generalized to the entire student body in the future. So again, I'm very glad to be here and very excited. Go Gators.
Well, thanks to both of you. We're happy for what you're doing here. We thank you for your efforts here. And Dr. Collier, we're glad you returned to Louisiana. So we're glad to have both of you at Pennington. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes of our December 11th, 2015. Okay, we got a motion by Mr. Malik, second by Scott. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Next, personnel actions. You have a personnel action spreadsheet in your file. If you have any questions for Mr. Tom Skinner, please.
Move approval. Second.
Okay, motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, report from the Council of Faculty Advisors and Council of Staff Advisors. Dr. Cope, I know you've been waiting all day for this.
Oh, I will wait all day, all night. This is such a privilege that I would not want to report at any other time than one appropriate for Vincent Price in his most vampiric mode. You know, the activities of the faculty over a 2-month period is like a great carousel filled with plumage and odd characters. So in respect of the time, I thought I would just zero in or zoom in on screenshots of about 7 or so activities in which the faculty is immediately engaged. We have some comment. The first actually hails from Eunice. I am happy to report that in consultation with the Commissioner of Higher Education, the silver-haired scampering youngster next to me, Jem Robinson, has succeeded in setting the theme for the Congress of Louisiana Colleges and Universities Conference that will take place in March. That theme is very forward-looking. It will be the future of the university, and it will feature a panel of no less than 6 faculty activists who will engage in the art of opining. We also have a conference coming up in about 4 weeks in Alexandria, the most beautiful campus in Louisiana. That will again include a presentation by the Commissioner of Higher Education, Joe Rallo, as well as a number of interesting presentations, one among them being on the topic of the cultivation of leadership among women in Louisiana universities. There's always some suggestion that comes along from the Council of Faculty Advisors, and one of those is that we need to work to develop ways to make the evaluation of both campus and system executives credible. It's the opinion of my colleagues and myself as well that if the evaluations of chief executives are too confidential, it tends to corrode the confidence of the public. Therefore, this being a season of invitations, we have already sent to King Alexander an invitation to join us, that being the faculty governance officials around the state, in the development of credible evaluation procedures to build confidence in the public. This, in turn, of course, brings us to the fact that on board the aforementioned carousel, there's always one of those 800-pound gorillas, always a little bit difficult to mention, but I have been asked by a number of folks from the northern part of our state to mention that it would be a good thing indeed if we found a way to resolve the ongoing controversy and indeed turmoil relating to the discovery of at least interim academically qualified leadership at the LSU HSCS campus. The folks there are in great distress and have asked me to point this out and hope that in your wisdom you will move that institution in a direction that gives credit to academically driven leadership. Along the lines of academically driven leadership, I'm happy to report that we have great momentum going on the LSU A&M campus. We have been given to understand that one of our more visionary administrators, Provost Kovac, is undertaking the rewriting or the proposing of the rewriting of the vision statement for the university, Vision 2020 or whatever it is, being not too much longer to go before we reach that point. We are wholeheartedly in favor of this. The faculty governance apparatus stands ready to assist in that in every way. And again, we are hoping that we can move from the more pedestrian concerns of developing a workforce for this or that other task and in the direction of dynamic and forward-looking futuristic research per President Robinson's theme, the higher education as the future. One of the suggestions that we put forward that I hope you will consider taking system-wide is that on the A&M campus, we begin an evaluation of the real costs of faculty turnover. We've heard today about many campuses where the faculty are running off the ship faster than those that escaped the plague in Venice in 1348. And we suggest that it might be a good thing both to look at the cost of turnover and to ask the fundamental question, why are faculty leaving? Again, we've had good cooperation with that from the upper brass in the LSU system and LSU campus office, but we ask for the imprimatur of the Board of Supervisors as we attempt to rip off the veil and show why it is that the faculty are leaving and answer that question in a way that will put a stop to that horrible phenomenon. The last 800-pound gorilla in the room that I've been asked to mention by dozens upon dozens of faculty members relates to this curious statue. We did hear the curious hypothesis put forth earlier that no one was opposed to the statue. I will say that is factually incorrect. Both I and dozens or hundreds of faculty members are opposed to the statue, not in itself and not forever, but until such a time as we begin erecting statues of academic achievers, including chaired designated professors and those who have contributed to humanity in something beyond the art of dribbling. We wonder what, in this time of budget stress, what kind of message is sent to the public when the supervisors are prepared to dig deep into six figures in order to set up such a monumental structure at a time when we have faculty here who are craving a fraction of 1% in their retirement increment. What kind of message does it say to faculty about the attitude of the system when a large sum of money is spent erecting a brazen idol when in fact the faculty are going hungry? We do not believe that there is any malice in your intention, but we ask, is this the phenomenon that you want to be seen by a large audience? Thank you.
Thank you for your insight, Dr. Cope, and I might point out that that particular statue, or all of our statues, are being paid for with private funds.
If I might comment briefly and respectfully on that, we also in our discussions would ask the board perhaps to stand down a bit from the rhetoric of public and private, this being by no means an impermeable membrane, and the amount of charity in this state being limited. We suggest that now is the time to embark on an ambitious program to educate donors as to the wise way to spend their money.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
And can I make, Mr. Cope, one comment? I would say that sentiment has been discussed at the board, and I think the board should step back and say, how do we make sure that we are honoring both our athletes but our academic achievements? I think there is a need for us to study that in a greater context before we come back and go further from where we are today. It's a good point.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Julie Perkins, report on the Council of Staff Advisors.
Yes, sir. I have a couple of people joining me this afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. On behalf of the Council of Staff Advisors, I want to thank Chairman Lassane and Chair-elect Ballard for taking the time to meet with us not too long ago to discuss how best our group can serve you this year. It's our understanding that bringing forward stories of staff successes and highlighting individuals and groups of staff is not only of interest to you, but can help you as you continue to tell the story of what makes LSU so special. Particularly in times of budgetary concern, we hope to arm you with information that you might perhaps not otherwise have. So today, I would like to introduce you to Miss Winnie Netters. Come on up, Miss Winnie. Hello. Miss Winnie is a 16-year employee on the LSU campus who truly exemplifies the attributes that we should all hope to display each day in our work. Miss Winnie, as everyone calls her, works in the Office of Parking and Transportation Services, but everyone knows her as the smiling face that greets faculty, staff, and visitors and students at the traffic booth at the intersection of Dalrymple and Infirmary Road. Always with a wave, a good morning, how are you, a kind word of encouragement. She's always there making LSU a welcoming place and serving as a reminder for some of us on our busy days to slow down just a little bit and remember that the people are what makes LSU so unique. Recently, Miss Winnie was recognized by the LSU Office of Diversity as the recipient of the MLK Unsung Hero Award, and if I'm not mistaken, this was the first time that award was given. So she is the inaugural winner of that award. This award is given to an individual whose actions and daily work embody the principles of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Not one for the spotlight, Miss Winnie serves as a true ambassador for LSU, doing her part to ensure that each person she encounters is treated with compassion, dignity, fairness, and of course, tiger pride. She's been quoted as saying, "People can choose to have a good day or a bad one, and I always choose to have a good day." Standing with her today is her supervisor. Come on up. Corey Chisholm. Corey shared with me when we spoke on the phone about this presentation that she considers Miss Winnie an example for all of the employees in their division and that she's a real joy to work with, and I totally believe that. The Council of Staff Advisors asked you to join us in congratulating Miss Winnie on her recent recognition, but more importantly, thanking her for her daily contribution to LSU. We really appreciate you giving us this opportunity to highlight just one of thousands of amazing staff members, and we hope to bring more individuals like this to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Miss Winnie, and thank you, ladies, for all you do for your service. We appreciate it. Okay, next is the President's report, and I just saw him stick his head in and run, and here he is. All right, you're on.
Thank you. Apologize for the delay. We've got a few issues we're dealing with.
A few.
We normally ask the chancellors who have advised me they wanted to make some announcements. Due to time, we're going to push those back. We can make these announcements at the next meeting, and many of those, and I appreciate their cooperation with this. I just want to talk about one quick issue, and it's the whole reason why the Commissioner of Administration, Jay Darden, came today. In case people don't fully understand the magnitude of what is handed to us, and I won't even talk about the $1.9 million or billion-dollar budget reduction next year that we're going to have to solve. Let me share with you what that means, what the $65 million hit to LSU means in this semester in the next 4 months, so everybody has an understanding and they understand what we're talking about. As I mentioned, we're looking at a potential per student fee increase, academic program excellence fee increase of nearly $700 at some point in the semester. That means that they can't apply for financial aid. That means that, and this is just on our student-bearing institutions. Other institutions will not, many of our others, A, E, and S, won't be able to go very far in that direction. We may not be able to go very far as a flagship institution and LSU, but that is one of the potential consequences. A potential 12% reduction in the number of undergraduate students, a massive elimination of summer programs as we go forward. This is equivalent to the loss of 135 faculty lines. And that is another loss on top of the 222 faculty lines net loss that we have endured over the last 7 years. Significant amount. The equivalent to almost 300 staff lines, many of those in student services, in programs designed to help our students succeed, retain, and graduate from the institution. Alexandria, a significant loss in full-time unclassified positions. We're talking about immediate furloughs of staff in staff positions. It's at Eunice of possibly 9 or 10 furloughs. Reduction of course sections at Eunice by 20%, 80 sections eliminated. Shreveport, the elimination of the new academic support labs and all they have done to attract, retain, and help students graduate in Shreveport. In our medical center in New Orleans, it's the equivalent of the loss of 264 faculty members and staff members, almost 12% of the entire workforce. The Shreveport, our medical center and school in Shreveport, it's the implementation of nearly 170, it impacts nearly 170 physicians and staff members that would be lost. Our ag centers, declaration of financial exigency would follow, and the implementation of layoffs, which would follow, which would also allow for furloughs. The elimination of the parish-based extension model that serves every parish of the state, the closure of 5 of our agricultural research stations, and at Pennington, a substantial loss in federal research dollars due to the loss of nearly 176 FTE staff, nearly $13 million in individuals that generate millions in outside funds and private funds for LSU. I can't tell you how serious these cuts are. They are as serious, and the time frame that we have been given to work it out is indeed a challenge in itself. But more importantly, I think that we have to make decisions as a state, and we have to make decisions, and I think Mr. Perry pointed out this is not an R or D problem, a Democrat or Republican problem or independent problem. This is a Louisiana problem. And at this point, with 4 months to collect revenues, with 4 months to do something, we have a special session coming up starting February 14th. And we hope that we can come in front of the next meeting and say that these issues have been resolved. Otherwise, we will probably, after that session, have to come into this meeting to tell you exactly how many of these actions have had to been taken in the next 6 months. So this is the challenge that we are facing. We knew on June 11th that we were buying 6 months, some breathing time, but now the 6 months are up. And we will have to take these actions, and these numbers are not fictitious. They're not based on philosophy or ideology. These are practical numbers that we as a state have to come together to address and end the next special session, which is in 2 weeks. That's my report, Mr. Chairman.
King, I'm trying to find it. Is that the document that Doreen sent to us, or a different document? This sort of executive summary version?
We sent the executive summary. Is Doreen here? Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I've got access to that, because that's a great, the way you laid that out is very real in the impact. So either if we haven't,
We'll resend it to everybody. If we've already sent it, we'll resend it. The document sent to the board on the budget cuts, was that an executive summary or was that the entire document?
I think it was the long document. There was a link.
The long version? Okay, why don't we resend that to all the board members again so that they have access to the right down on the ground reality of what this reduction means to us, that we're going to have to start moving on if this special session does not address it.
what really is helpful, he gave some executive summary examples of the very specific impacts on faculty at various campuses and so forth. Having those kinds of bullets that are in that kind of conversational form helps us when we're in brief meetings with colleagues, legislators, business influencers. So it would really help if we, in addition to the big document, if whatever y'all develop for internal use, that have those kinds of summaries, it would really help for us to have it so we can, whether you call it the elevator speech or the talking points or the whatever, That would be great.
And one I forgot is Pennington would also be in financial exigency. That would lead to the 176 layoffs and job reductions. So the time frame is a great challenge, but the reality of this budget reduction is it's unprecedented. Now, we dodged a bullet last year. It was a bit larger, but if you take a 32% reduction in one semester, what you're saying, if you annualize that, this is a 64% reduction. 64% reduction. And you won't find this in a newspaper anywhere else in the United States in any other state. Kentucky was griping about a 5% that they're going to have to face for the next 4 years. And this 64% when you annualize this. And these numbers are real, and these problems are real for this state.
Thank you, Dr. Alexander. The next item is reports to the boards in your package. You have the first quarter internal audit summary and also the second quarter consolidated investment report. Are there any questions on those reports? Hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of consent agenda items. There are a number of items that have been in your package. I'm sure all of you have read them.
Consent agenda
Motion by Mr. Perry, second by Mr. Anderson. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item are committee reports. Let's see, there were some action items. They were all unanimous. And with that being the case, I would accept a motion.
I would accept a motion that we accept all of the committee reports and unanimous recommendation.
Okay. Motion and second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries. Chairman's report. The next meeting is March 29th. Hopefully it won't be as long as this. We will pick up on some of the reports, the presentations that we missed today. So Rolf, you still have your opportunity, and we look forward to that. The next meeting, March 29th, will be in New Orleans. March 29th, is that a Tuesday? It should be a Friday, and a Thursday there will be a tour of the Micho. Your calendar says, well, that date may be wrong. Check my calendar, see if mine's the same as yours.
March 18th.
I have it down as March 18th, Mr. Chair.
March 18th?
Yeah.
March 18th, okay. That's what's on my calendar, too. My notes don't say that. Okay, any other business? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Motion, second. All in favor? Okay. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, sir.